CFA Level 1. How do you pass on your first attempt? Now, I think my anecdotal story and data point, as you could say, is pretty strong just given the fact that I actually don't have a traditional finance background. I'm on the older side of probably most exam candidates. I'm in my early 30s, and I had a lot of life experiences happen last year and also this year. I got married last year, studied during my honeymoon. I'll tell you a little bit about that. And I'm in the process of moving cross country this year. So a lot has happened in my life where I had to study and hunker down with all these other things going on and without having a traditional finance background. So I'm going to tell you how I passed on my first attempt of studying. And it comes down to two key concepts. One, over-planning, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. And two, over-executing. I'll talk about what that means. So before we get into it, please hit that like button. It helps this video get out to more CFA candidates and more people looking to get into the CFA program. And please hit that subscribe button as I will be releasing more videos on the CFA and financial analysis. Now, over-planning. Why did I over-plan? Well, it's because of all those things I mentioned. I'm a little bit older, I don't have a traditional finance background, so on and so forth. So what I decided to do was take a look at what most people do in order to pass, or what most people do just in general. Come to find out that most people tend to study about 300 hours. I wanted to at least double that. So I at least wanted to study 600 hours. And what I did was I decided to give myself a decent amount of buffer room in order to do that. And I decided to sit for May 18th of 2022, and I registered in late July, early August, and I can't remember which of the two, it was probably August. And from August to about early April, I did the bulk of my studying and learning and understanding. And then from April to the end of May 18th, or May 17th really, I did the bulk of my practice questions, mock exams, and just reviewing constantly over and over and over again. And I did a lot of additional, I put a lot of additional time in during that period. Now, as far as over planning is concerned, the range is important. So I want to give myself a huge range of time for me to understand these new concepts. Some of them were kind of a refresher because I did have somewhat of a decent math background, but I come from the field of marketing. So yeah, I had some understanding of just basic statistics, but not to this level. And of course, there's additional things outside of statistics in finance that I had to learn for the first time. So I gave myself a huge window of time in order to study. So August to about April. Now, within that time, how did I study? Well, a lot of people will say, hey, don't read any books, just go and get video tutorials, get Kaplan Schweizer, or so on and so forth. Again, I am over planning at this point. So I decided to do everything. I bought the CFA Level 1 books, and I also bought a video series which was Mark Meldrum's, because I heard so many good things about it. I wanted a video series, and I potentially wanted to also take some additional mock exams, and I wanted to do it for a decently lower price. And Mark Meldrum's video courses were great for that. And they're pretty much to the point. They focus on the learning objectives and teaching you how to understand them. And anytime I need to fill in the gaps, I would just open the books and fill in the gaps by reading through the sections. And I actually liked doing this, over planning in this way, because there are times when you actually need to know what or how the CFA words something, or how the CFA describes something or defines something. Everything has a similar definition, obviously, but the way that they may write it may help trigger something for you when you're actually taking an exam or when you're doing a practice question. Just the way that they write out a definition may help you out. So I wanted to make sure that I'm reading straight from the horse's mouth, which was the actual textbook material. But for the sake of speed and learning, that's why I used Mark Meldrum's courses. So between August through April, I did a mix of video content and reading content. And the other thing that I really liked about Mark Meldrum's course is that he allows you to set up a schedule that allows you to hit your time investment goals. And he does this in a really great mathematical way where you set out the hours that you want to put in, and then it pretty much distributes it along, let's say, for example, how hard you view one section over another. It distributes more time to that harder section than it does the section that you find pretty easy to execute on. So for myself, I said almost everything was hard because I wanted to overplan and overcorrect in that scenario. I wound up actually studying over 700 hours. And a lot of people have asked me, well, why did you study 700 hours? 300 hours might not be enough, but 700 seems like overkill. Again, I wanted to put as many eggs in my basket because I didn't have a traditional finance background and I wanted to pass on my first attempt because these exams are pretty expensive if you guys don't know. So I did not want to retake these things or retake level 1, and I don't want to retake any of the other exams. So I'm going to be doing the same plan next time around for CFA level 2. So how else did I overplan? The last thing I did was I differentiated my learning styles because I have a bit of a education background, and I understand that depending on the different style of learning, it can help you lock in a concept a little bit better. Some people might be better at video, audio, kinesthetic, so on and so forth. So I just wanted to put as many of the eggs in my basket as possible. So what I did was I divided my review into 4 sections, whether it be practicing writing out formulas, memorizing formulas and writing them out physically by hand, flashcards that the learning ecosystem provided, online flashcards, I didn't write them out, video review, and this could sometimes encompass reading material as well, and also practice questions. And depending on the day, I would do 2 hours of one and 20 minutes of the other 3. So it could be 2 hours of practice questions, 20 minutes of formula writing, 20 minutes of flashcards, 20 minutes of video. And I would do this from the early April to about the end of May. And I just did this nonstop. And every couple of weeks, I would do a mock exam in the style that people recommend, which is pretending as if you were taking the mock exam in a Prometric site, for example. So I woke up, took the test or the mock exam at the time that I was going to be sitting for the mock exam, and got some different tips for myself. A lot of them were kind of psychological things and even physical things. I might talk about that in another video. But I noticed that with every mock exam that I took, and I only took 2 mock exams. The first one I did kind of on, the second one I did very well on. And I figured, okay, well, if I do somewhere around an average of this, I should be somewhat okay. And by the time I took the test on May 18th, I did pretty well. Now, what did I do the day before? Because a lot of people are wondering, well, what do you do the day before? Do you do nothing? Do you cram as much as possible? I did something in between. So I didn't do too much of the heavy intellectual things. I did a lot of cramming for ethics things. Primarily for me, it was a lot of the GIPS topics that I just didn't have enough knowledge on. I noticed that I would actually miss a lot of those questions when I did the practice questions. So I just did a lot of cramming on the GIPS stuff just so it could be fresh in my head. So by the time that I sat down for the exam, I could actually execute on that. And of course, the GIPS stuff might go away, but I wanted to cram as much in as possible so I wouldn't miss an easy point that I otherwise wouldn't have gotten just by, if I had additional time and I could do something using a formula. I couldn't do that with something like, well, what does GIPS stand for example? You kind of have to know what GIPS stands for. There's no way you can derive that. So I did a lot of, I would say maybe 3 to 4 hours of cramming on ethics, and then the rest of the day I just did nothing. I helped my wife cook, and that was pretty much it. And I took the exam. After I left the exam, I felt pretty good. Um, I will say at the at one point in the exam, I actually had about an hour left to just review and see what I got wrong, see what I got right, review questions. And after I walked out, I felt pretty strong. And then as the weeks proceed, you kind of get into your head, you kind of say, well, maybe I didn't pass. And then the day of when they announced the exam, not only did I pass, but I scored just under the 90th percentile level. So I would say if you want to pass, make sure you overplan, meaning give yourself enough buffer room, make sure you do a whole bunch of different learning styles, and also make sure that you get as many different types of material as possible. In my opinion, I got Mark Meldrum, I got the CFA textbooks, and over-execute. Over-execute means basically just keep hammering things away, have discipline, be meticulous, do not hop off your schedule. You have to stick to your schedule. You have to. There's no way that you're gonna say, hey, I'm gonna do 3 hours a day, and then you do 3 hours, once every few days. No, do it every single day. And to give you a bonus tip or a bonus real life scenario, I got married last year. During my honeymoon, I was doing CFA studying. And I didn't do any math intensive stuff. I actually did a lot of my first round of learning ethics during that time. I did ethics, I think in my second or third block of studying. I did quant first, economics second, and then I did ethics third. And ethics, the reason why I did ethics on vacation or honeymoon is because I knew I couldn't sit down with a calculator and do a bunch of stuff, and it was just too much. But I knew I could read and understand a simple concept or watch a video without having to practice that concept and do that pretty well on vacation. So that's why I chose ethics. So there are ways you can move things around in your schedule, but again, you have to over execute. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Have a good day.